All right. Okay, well, let me turn this off. There we go. Whoop, sorry guys, I brought you on stage too early. Well, that's all right. Hey, let's do this. Let's start this way. Hi everybody, Aaron from Solace here, back with you for yet another Solace office hours. Today is February 26th, I think, 2025. And this is episode 47. If you're watching on LinkedIn, you might notice that the title, I think, says 41 or 40 or something. After we posted the event and, in the last week, I did some cleanup of the YouTube channel and I found there was, I missed a couple. When I first started, I was on Twitch. I did quite a few during Twitch during the pandemic. And shout out to Phil Scanlon, if he's ever listening. He was the one who kind of suggested this in the first place. So this has grown into quite a cool thing every month. It used to be weekly. I couldn't keep that kind of tempo up, So anyway, so today I am joined by my colleagues Rob and Murat, and we're going to be talking about the Solace Schema Registry. So hello guys, welcome to the stream. Thank you for being here.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning. Good evening.
Good morning. Good evening. All right. So you two guys are both in the product management team at Solace. Why don't you just introduce yourself, give a little bit about you, and so the people know who you are.
Right. So I'm Rob Tomkins. I'm Director of Product Management here at Solace for APIs and our Operate and Observe portfolios, and that includes Schema Registry. And I brought along one of my product managers, Murat, today.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Murat. I'm one of the technical product managers, mostly responsible for all the wonderful Solace SMF APIs, as well as the Schema Registry now.
That's right. Well, we have a lot of developers, people that listen to our stream, people that come onto the Solace community asking questions about API features. And Murat is the guy in the background who usually ends up dealing with all these requests, feature requests, enhancements, and stuff like that. So he's a good guy to be here on the stream. And Rob, you've been here a couple times, I think. Murat, I think this is your first, isn't it? I think so.
It is my first time, but I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. We're happy to have you. All right. So before we get started, just a quick couple shout outs out there. Hey, people are listening to us all over the world. We are live. I'm in Singapore. Where are you guys actually right now?
So
hello.
I think,
yeah,
we're both out of Ottawa. Good old Ottawa. Yeah.
All right. What's the weather like there? It's February. It's I'm assuming a little chilly outside, eh?
Still a little chilly. It seemed to be getting better, but as is usual, you get a bit of a false hope of spring, and then you're reminded where you live.
A big snowstorm in March or something.
We had rain yesterday, and it's a little bit warm, but it's supposed to get cold again this weekend.
All right. Yeah, that's typical Ottawa weather. So good morning to you both. It's evening time here. Hey, if you're out there and hear us and listening to us, we are live on LinkedIn. We are live on YouTube and on the Solace community, solace.community. Put it in the chat. Say hello. Hey, we actually, Carol, hello. Added a comment before we even started. That is great. Hello from the Netherlands. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And Running Roach, another longtime favorite. Thank you for being here. Driving in snow, not something I miss. Yeah, it's good winter tires and all-wheel drive is not so bad, but it's getting in the car if it's been left outside overnight and you have to scrape it all off and it's minus 30. That's the worst in my opinion. AS. I'm sorry. I'm not even your main talking there. I'm an end user, just a fascinating product. And hello from cold Dublin. Hello. Thank you for checking us out. I hope you find today interesting. Thanks for being here. So very cool. Okay, guys. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the Solace Schema Registry. Do we just want to jump straight into slides, or have a bit of a chat first, or what should we do? How do you want to do this?
Yeah, however you like.
Hey, Mark. Mark's my boss. Hello from Orlando. Good to have you back there. Okay. So, well then, Rob, how about we, if you're going to do some slides, how about we share those and just kind of jump into this, right?
Sure.
Okay. So add Rob.
Up.
Boop-a-doo. Wow. Full screen. That's not the right button. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. The stage is yours, Rob. Here we go.
All right. We're going to cover off the Solace Schema Registry today, and that's been a labor of love for me for a couple of years now, and Murat for about the last year. And we've now taken this to beta. So this is part of what we're doing here is generating some excitement for our beta. We really want to get your feedback as customers on what we've done so far from a Schema Registry portfolio standpoint, and understand how we can make it better so that we're hitting the ground running when we have GA. But let's talk.
So we've been working on this for a while. Then I mean, this is a long time coming, and I guess people are quite expectant, quite excited to have this finally be in beta and finally be able to get their hands on it, right?
Exactly. Lots of customers looking for, this ability to go out and provide governance of your data, make sure that your topics and your schemas are all aligned across Solace. I mean, when you look at what's happening with the micro integrations and all the different applications you're trying to integrate, how do you make sure that payload that the publisher publishes is something that the consumer can consume? And that's what Schema Registry is really about.
Right. Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, to that point, I mean, you look at Integration Reimagined, which is our, campaign around how we're changing integrations, our micro integrations, our ability to adapt through our APIs. And, it's all really about greater real-time interaction between applications. And the application space is just growing massively. And the number of enterprises and the software that they have under the hood is growing exponentially. And that means, you've got to change payloads, and that's increasing the risk of payload encoding and decoding. So, more and more companies actually have people who are responsible for governing and standardizing payload structures. And, a Schema Registry kind of emerged in the not exactly in Kafka, but some Kafka flavors came out with this. And, we could see absolutely the value behind doing that for the Solace portfolio and kind of taking it to the next level.
Right. I assume before the concept of a Schema Registry existed, this would have been like in some specification document, where like this type of message is going to have this type of payload encoding, and, maybe you build that into some API that could do the serializing, deserializing. But now this is like more online, and like you can query it, I guess, from the app itself and to say, what's it look like, right? Or
yeah. And you had more of a, when you decided you wanted to change that schema from the publisher, you had to line up all your consumers and flash cut them all over to the same schema. It much more of a kind of complicated process. And that's really what drove to this kind of solution.
Cool. All right.
Right.
Well, while you're having a quick pause there, Rob, I just want to throw up a couple more people saying hello. Hello, Dom.
Yeah.
From the UK. Excellent. Good afternoon, I guess then. Hello. Thanks for being here. Anonymous LinkedIn user. Hello from Paris. Whoever you are, thank you for joining. I know when that happens, there's some privacy setting somewhere in LinkedIn that doesn't share your name with something, because Mark was always anonymous as well when he first started. So anyway, hello, bonjour, salut, merci, and I hope you enjoy. All right, Rob, sorry, back to you.
No problem. Lots of Europeans today, it looks like. So what we're really getting from Schema Registry is governance of event data. So ensuring compatibility of schemas between producers and consumers. And, this allows you to kind of look at your runtime, make sure that it's safe. You can evolve your schema and validate it. You get an immediate warning if, the schema has changed and the consumer is not able to decode it. That kind of capability, being able to compare in the Schema Registry to understand, this version of this schema against that version, is it backwards compatible or not, is all part of Schema Registry. And, this allows you to ensure data quality and consistency across all your consumers, and that you aren't, going for days with garbage data getting collected because, that schema changed underneath you and you're not decoding the right bits.
Throwing exceptions everywhere, maybe, and
Exactly. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how we're actually doing this. So when you look at Solace today, you know, we've got our APIs, which Murat is responsible for, and there's a large number of SMF APIs that, as Murat talked about before. And today a message comes in, we basically put a label in front of it, convert it to our SMF protocol, and then it goes to the broker, and the broker may replicate it. It goes to the far end API, which can be different. So it could go from JCSMP to .NET or something like that. And then that doesn't matter what the schema is. It's totally payload independent. And this makes a very flexible product that really focuses on that kind of publish subscribe mechanism. But the complaints
I've always said, like, when we do training, it's always payload agnostic. The broker does not care what your payload is. You can send JSON, Avro, cat gifs.
Protobuf,
XML, like your internet router doesn't care what's inside the TCP packet, right? It just cares about the header to how to route it, and you can send whatever is inside there. So we're kind of the same, at least as far as the broker is concerned, right? It'll route whatever payload you have in there. It's the applications that are more concerned, I guess, what's in the payload.
Right. So how do we adapt this to handle the schema and make sure that the schemas align between a publisher and a subscriber? And so basically what we're doing in our implementation is adding another component, and this is a schema registry. And the schema registry will talk to new components called SERDES or SERDES that are attached to our APIs. And it's the SERDES that is aware of the payload format. So you'll have different SERDES depending on whether you've got Avro or JSON, for example. And that will connect into the API for JCSMP, Java, Go, Python, and so it's the SERDES will actually pull together the information from the application and create the payload after having validated with the schema registry. So it kind of looks like this, where we start off with the schema registry, and you populate the schema registry with schema. And today, if you do that with a Kafka flavor, that tends to be a bunch of manual input or a bunch of APIs. One of the big things that we're delivering with the Solace Schema Registry is that we're tying it into PubSub plus Event Portal. And PubSub plus Event Portal is already schema aware. You design it when you're doing the design of your applications. And so, just like Event Portal is now starting to, configure the brokers as you move into runtime, it's going to configure the schema into the schema registry. And that's going to be a huge value add for customers around efficiency, flexibility, and accuracy. So, I think that's one of the big differentiators that we're doing with this schema registry.
Is that going to be part of the beta? Is this integration kind of when it's first released, or is that coming later for GA?
It's going to come with the cloud general availability. So you'll see in the roadmap coming up that we've got the beta happening now. And then kind of mid this year, we're looking at the GA for self-managed. And then towards the end of the year, we'll be doing that full-fledged integration of the schema registry into cloud, into insights, into event portal, into mission control, so that you have the full cloud managed. And the anticipation is that we'll have that PubSub plus event portal integrated at that time.
Cool. Just for the record, if anybody out there doesn't know what a SERDES is, it's a serializer deserializer. The first time I heard that word, I was like, what the heck is this? I had to Google it. So if you've never heard of it, you're not alone. And it's a very interesting portmanteau, I guess that would be, or a contraction. I'm not sure. Anyway.
Yeah, it's funny. I spent some time as a product manager in telecom, and they use that all the time. So I don't even think about mentioning it to the audiences. But yeah, that certainly makes sense for this.
Very. I think we just answered this question, but John here, will it be possible to run Schema Registry without the event portal? And I think definitely, right? That's
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So even in cloud or even in especially in self-managed, of course, you'll be able to do Schema Registry without event portal, and that first self-managed GA will allow you to run Schema Registry separately.
Cool. All right.
All right. So basically, what happens now with once we have the Schema Registry is the SERDES actually takes the message, and it does a lookup on the schema and says, hey, I want to use this schema. Is it valid? And can you pass me an ID that I'll pass along to the consumer so that the consumer can look up and understand what the schema is. And so, that basically comes back as a message from the Schema Registry with those details about what's valid. You can even at this stage ask, what's the latest version of this, if you want to encapsulate it in the latest, or you can present to it the schema that you want to use and just make sure that's valid. Either way. And then at this point, the contents get placed into the message based on that schema, assuming it's validated, as well as the message ID that came from the Schema Registry. And then we pass it along to the API, which does the labeling, sends it out. And at the far end, it moves on to the SERDES after it's been unlabeled. And that, each one of those consumers will ask the Schema Registry for the details about that particular schema ID. And it will tell it how to decode it.
So the label, I was guessing it was the topic, but now I think, it's actually the schema ID, right? That's what the label is? That's okay. Yeah.
That's right.
Got it.
Yeah. And maybe, Rob, it may be worthwhile highlighting here that this is only done on the initial run of the application. So
not every single message, I guess, right?
Exactly, because you don't want to get that performance hit having to go to the Schema Registry every time. So it is something that will be cached.
That's right. So it's basically the first message, and then with that schema that the publisher and the consumer has, that will go to the Schema Registry. And then there will be a timeout, of course, inside each for the cache, or if the cache gets filled up, it would push out. But it's very few messages that actually go to the Schema Registry.
We have a couple of questions. That's a nice little pause there. I'm just going to throw them up here. I didn't read it entirely. It's quite long. Carol, would Schema Registry enable us to do data validation somewhere along the way through Solace, or are we keeping the transfer payload agnostic without ever parsing it? Because as an EAI specialist, I do not trust business systems that do data validation. I usually plan it within an iPaaS, an integration platform as a service. Any comment there?
Yeah, so the data validation, should you choose to do it, would happen at the SERDES. It wouldn't happen in the process. It's interesting talking to many different customers. Some of them are really looking even to kind of close the loop and have another application that checks to make sure what the consumer and the publisher say, and others that want to do it in iPaaS. So this allow you to flexibly decide where and how you're doing your validation.
Right. I kind of, when people ask if, the broker itself could do the validation, I kind of always go back and say, we're built as a high performance router broker, to try to have the router itself doing introspection of all these messages and the APIs and the payloads and everything. It's not what it was built for. I mean, so I think, putting it at the API side, data going in, data going out, makes well, makes more sense to me, maybe not to everybody, and maybe people have differing opinions. So thanks for that.
You do see out there in Kafka that they sometimes do validation at the broker level, but it's a very, very basic validation. It's very easy to have, the wrong message go through or think something's valid when it's not. It's much more thorough to do it at the SERDES, and of course more scalable because there's more of them, and you're not consuming the performance of the broker, as you say.
Okay. Yeah, and just to add to this question very briefly, in terms of not trusting the business systems, the validation is something that's automatically done within the SERDES. So you're not necessarily relying on the application to kind of do it or not do it. The SERDES itself will check the schema and validate it, and if it does not match the schema, it will error out. So it is something that's enforced on the SERDES side. So it's not completely reliant on the application kind of adhering to it.
Right. Cool. Good. Good answer there. Carol just said that's a fair point, Aaron. I guess about having the broker, but having that schema will help anyways. Lots of questions popping up here. All right, sorry guys, but yeah, just hold your horses. Keith, hello from Charleston, South Carolina. Hello, welcome, good morning. How detailed should the schema and ontology be part of the company's data management strategy, or left to the back office or service provider? I would the data management strategy. I think it's very much a big part of the data management strategy, right? It's not really a middleware thing per se. It's more of a business and architectural. Yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have a?
Yeah, I mean, so far what I've seen with our customers, it's kind of front and center in the enterprise from an application standpoint, and it's quite often a DevOps or an application leader that is leading the charge on data quality and data governance for these things. So I don't think it goes to the back office of the service provider from what I've seen.
Okay. Murat, any comment there?
No, exactly
okay.
as Rob said.
Last one, and then I'll let you keep talking. Running Roach from Hong Kong there. My brain is trying to put together your earlier office hours about transformers and seeing a way to dynamically build transformers for backward compatibility for consumers based of Schema Registry, ... What are the advantages of using a Schema Registry over leveraging async API code generators for the subscriber code base to enforce specific schemas? Well,
okay.
Not all of our apps. A lot of apps out there are not just auto-generated from async API, right? I mean, that's probably the number one. And async API as a specification is still maturing, and adoption is, it's growing, but it's not. And there's a ton of apps out there that don't use async API. They just code their pub sub async architectures without it. So maybe both are good. Sorry. I thought both these comments were for Running Roach. I thought I just strung them together. Sorry about that, John. Sorry about that, Running Roach. I kind of anyway, sorry. This is a second question. Yeah, sorry about that.
So I think you're right. There isn't ubiquitous use of async API code generators, but and that's great for creating consistency on the publishing side. But here you also want to make sure that you are aligned on the receiving side, and since you've potentially got many different applications using the same schema. The Schema Registry really provides that advantage of making sure everybody's on the same page and that there is compatibility. But absolutely is suited for code generators. Totally async API makes sense.
Yeah, and both together, right? I mean, there's no reason that they'll both quite happily. I mean, you can event portal, generate async API code, boom, there you go. Event portal into your Schema Registry for validation of the messages and the schemas going through it. So they'll both work together quite well.
Yep.
All right, thanks. Good question, John. I'm just going to put running roaches back up here for just a second. Office hours about transformers, seeing a way to build transformers backwards compatibility for consumers based off schema registry. Oh, like some way to pull like an old version and a new version of a schema out and build a transformer dynamically or automatically. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, kind of to help with the migration or like a blue-green cutover type thing. That's an interesting thought. All right.
Yeah, there's definitely, you can see that momentum inside Solace around, assisting customers with payload, and certainly transformers and schema registry play into that. And I think there's going to be a number of interesting solutions around around how we can manipulate payload to keep it within data governance and data quality.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for all the questions, everybody. I'm just going to let these two gentlemen get on with their talk. Thank you. Keep the questions coming, but let's do some slides now.
Yeah. All right. So what are you going to see from us from a serializer to serializer? We're going to have a SERDES by payload type, and they're going to do the serialization and deserialization of all fields, and we're going to do this in, as Murat was saying, a conservative manner, in that we're caching the information, and that'll cause minimal data stream interruptions due to schema queries. The thing to understand about the serializer, deserializers that we're going to create is that there's going to be a lot of different components to them, and you can see here, over the long term, we've got kind of 5 different APIs we're focused on, between JCSMP, CSMP, which is like our .NET, Java, Python, and Go, and then applying to them, the different formats, so Avro, JSON, Protobuf, and XML. And then, we've certainly heard loud and clear from customers, SMF is great, but they'd also like to be able to use REST or HTTP as the transport protocol. So, what we see is actually a very large number of SERDES artifacts coming from Solace as we begin to roll this out. And so, one question we do have for customers when we meet with them is, which ones are important to you? So we make a prioritized list and roll that out according to our customers' priorities. Right now, the focus has been on our JCSMP Avro, and that's part of the beta right now. And we're going to evolve that with JSON shortly, and both of those are SMF, and we're looking at discussing with customers the next steps. Kind of looking to get a couple of APIs going before GA.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons we're doing this broadcast and like the beta program, is to get people out there aware and interested, and to try it out and to provide that feedback, because we do listen to our customer feedback, and there's rankings of all these different features that you guys have big lists, and if more people ask about a certain thing, it gets pushed up the list. And that's why we always suggest, come on, Solace community, come talk to your local Solace representatives and ask about these things, and these guys can put your name in the list and bump up the priorities, right? So,
yep, Murat has a huge tracking board for all of it.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure he does.
All right, and that kind of leads me to the rollout, which I kind of already discussed. So right now we have the self-managed beta start that's happened already, we've provided an open source schema registry, since our schema registry is not complete yet, and it's going to provide basic authentication only. And really what we're wanting you to experience is what's our first SERDES like with the schema registry. Are we doing the right sort of thing? What features inside that SERDES are important to you? We're kind of collecting all that information. And then, we're going to be rolling out more API SERDES capability as beta rolls out. And then, and I'll get into a bit more detail on that a little later. And then we're getting to the self-managed GA, where we'll actually have the Solace Schema Registry available. and we'll have the full production grade OIDC authentication added. So you can take it into production, and then we'll evolve the SERDES over time and take what we've developed from a self-managed GA and then insert that into cloud and do the integration with insights and mission control, and of course event portal, as well as making it available on cloud.
I noticed at the top it says January 2025, but no other dates as we go further to the right. So you kind of mentioned summerish time for the GA, you said, approximately?
Yeah, so we're looking at kind of a mid 2025 GA, and that's what the dev team is spending a lot of time on right now. So we've got a considerable amount of work going on there. And then, once that's complete, we're looking at kind of end of the year for the cloud managed is what I'm currently targeting.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Northern Hemisphere summer, I should have said, but yeah, mid 2025. That is more correct. Thank you, Rob.
All right. So one of the questions we get asked a lot is when you pass the message up to the schema registry from the publisher, how does it determine what schema to look at? And really that's by providing a resolver strategy into the schema registry with that message. And right now we've got 3 different resolver strategies that we're working on. So there's a record ID, which basically takes the schema name and the namespace and uses that to map to what's called an artifact coordinate, which is basically a collection of schemas, and says, with this schema, with this resolver strategy, record ID, and this schema name and this namespace, these schemas, it has to match to this collection of schemas. And similarly, we've got a destination ID, which basically just looks at your topic and maps that to an artifact. And then kind of Solace unique is the topic ID. And because Solace, unlike Kafka kind of has a flat topic structure, whereas we have a hierarchical and wildcard capable dynamic smart topic structure, right? So what we're taking is that destination ID and adding to it a topic profile so that you can match topics through a table, and then that provides you with your artifact coordinate as well as looking at the topic itself.
That's cool. So, a topic profile. All right.
Yeah. So it's basically a mapping of, this kind of smart topic matches to this artifact profile.
And just
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Aaron. I was just going to clarify that all these resolver strategies are strategies that you'll be able to configure within the SERDES. So you can tell the SERDES, I want to use this strategy, and that's what it will use. So it is a configurable item on the SERDES itself.
Right. Not something in the actual schema registry. So each app can kind of do their own style of resolving, I guess. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Rob, I just wanted to let you know your headphones kind of are cutting in, or your mic is cutting in and out a little bit. I don't know if they're fully charged or maybe your internet's a bit slow, but if suddenly you can't hear us, maybe your batteries are dying. So hopefully
I checked it before we started.
Yeah,
they're saying
your audio
they're
is
at
just a bit,
75%. I don't know what's happening then.
Okay, let's press on.
All right. For the for resolver strategies, here's just a couple of examples where record ID. It's really all about the average schema namespace and schema name that maps to the artifact coordinate, and topic doesn't matter. Whereas if you did the same scenario but with a destination ID strategy, it's looking for that artifact group ID based on the topic itself. So the group ID and the artifact ID are what make up that artifact coordinate that points to a series of schemas within the registry.
Okay.
And then, this is an example of the topic ID strategy that's unique to Solace, and it's basically looking at that topic pattern to as the artifact ID if there isn't a topic. What was the word I used? A topic profile. If there is a topic profile, then it will go to a mapped artifact ID, and that will be what's mapped in the artifact ID or the group ID, or for the expected artifact coordinate, which maps to the schemas.
Yeah, and just again to interject to all this, the likelihood is that the majority of customers using this will probably use something very similar to the destination ID, where it's really just the topic, and the topic is what links the schema in the schema registry. These are more advanced configuration options for customers that want to take advantage of it, but like it doesn't have to be this difficult. And if you don't have a strong need for this, using the destination ID strategy, for example, will be a little bit more performant if that's a thing that you care about. But yeah, so destination ID strategy is likely the one that most customers will be using. Just not to overwhelm anybody kind of looking at this and wondering, how do I configure all this?
Yeah, I'm feeling overwhelmed just from these 3 slides. I'm like, oh boy, there's a lot to learn about this. So it's not that scary, right? That's what you're saying? It's,
no, exactly.
Okay. All right, good.
Yeah. And in a way, the destination ID is very, very similar to what people would expect if they were familiar with what's happening in Kafka. So that's the typical default.
Okay.
But we are providing a wide variety of flexibility here, and that's something customers have asked for.
Good.
All right. And then this is the, kind of an overview of what as an application you should see from a interaction with the APIs and the SERDES. I'll let Murat take us through this.
Yeah. So, and I will be showing this in a little bit at our demo, but essentially the application is responsible for initiating and configuring the SERDES component itself. It will then send the serialized request to the JCSMP API in this case, because that's the only one available currently. And the API will forward that serialized request to the SERDES. And if you recall Rob's earlier fancy motion PowerPoint presentation, the SERDES will actually look up the artifact ID in the schema registry, again, based on the resolver strategy. With the initial beta, we are using a different default. With the next beta, which is tentatively slated for the end of this month, you'll be able to specify one of those 3 different resolver strategies. So you have the potential to change it there. But right now, it does the record ID lookup. So it goes to the schema registry, says, this is the record ID. Do you have a schema that matches it? Schema registry says yes, and here's the schema ID. So it gets the schema itself, schema ID, uses the schema to serialize the data, and it'll add the schema ID to the Solace user properties and return that back to the API. The API will then return that message back to the application, and then the application can finally publish that serialized message using the API and onto the broker. And then on the receiving end, the opposite of this happens. So the SERDES is responsible for taking that schema ID, doing the lookup on the schema registry, getting the schema back, and again, deserializing the payload that was initially serialized on the publishing side and pushing that back to the application. So it is relatively seamless to the application. All the interaction and kind of heavy lifting is really done by the API and the SERDES. The only thing the application has to be cognizant of is the configuration of the SERDES itself. And I will be showing some of the sample code with the sample that's included in the beta package. So
Cool.
You'll get a bit of a clearer view of what that looks like.
So I mean, I understand the initialization configuration, the serialized request. So is that another API? That's an API call that the application makes to kind of kick off this process just before they send the message? Is that like, so we're adding a new API, a couple of API methods or calls, I guess, right?
Yes, exactly. Okay. But they're really just very small interfaces on the API itself. Again, all the heavy lifting is being done in the SERDES component itself. So right. The API is really just an intermediary in this case, which leads us to a future point, which is that you could, in theory, use the SERDES with the Schema Registry, even without the API. So if you really felt so inclined, you could have an application that doesn't want to use the API for whatever reason. The SERDES component itself is quite generic in that sense, where you can make direct calls to it if you know how to handle all the interaction.
So if you want to roll your own, like you're using MQTT or something else that doesn't have this capability, you could kind of build it yourself and have it still work and play
exactly.
Well,
as long as, let's just say it's a Java version of the MQTT library. So
yeah. Quick question. I think you guys covered this, but how would a schema registry work per topic given the hierarchical nomenclature? That would be, that's what the topic profile was, right? That pattern. It would say, A/B/star. And if the topic matched that pattern, then that's the schema for it. So it's kind of built, even though our topics can be exceptionally dynamic, if it matches a particular pattern, with wildcards and stuff, then that's what I'm assuming is the answer here. If you guys agree, I'll let you.
No, that's exactly it. And we use the same kind of regex that we do for everything else at Solace to get the two to line up. So that's exactly how we resolve them.
Cool. I did have a quick question on the receiving side. Is it automatic? So on the publishing side, you have to make this request. On the receiving side, before the message arrives at the application in that callback, is it automatically deserialized, or do you have to make a call, or is it TBD?
Well, in the consumer, you mean?
Yeah.
So the message comes along with a schema ID, and it retrieves that schema ID, assuming the consumer hasn't seen it before, and then uses that particular schema to decode it.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to add additional clarification to that, you do need to call the deserialize on receive. So the deserialization itself is automatic, but the application has to be aware that they need to call it as well.
Got it.
Okay. So talking a bit about the beta itself. So, really what we're trying to do here is get feedback on that initial SERDES and, make sure that we generate the right experience for customers' interest in Schema Registry, understand what your priorities are, understand what you like and you don't like about what we've done so far, and to understand, which of these many artifacts are crucial for you for general availability. So, what we provide right now is, a single instance of the Aperturio registry. It's delivered in by a Docker Compose file and does, have all the integrations to be able to do a basic auth. It has a Postgres database integrated for backend storage. It's no Solace branding or anything to it. It's completely an open source schema registry for you to test out our SERDES against. And for SERDES, we've got the updated JCSMP API, and then the SERDES component, initially the Avro one. And we're working on this directly with our account teams, our R&D and product management, not going through the usual support structure, just to make sure that we get as direct feedback from customers as possible.
Mhm.
As with any beta, there's a pile of limitations.
Let's not go through all of those right now, Rob. That's
No,
that's
exactly,
a long list.
exactly. The main reason for flashing it up is, clearly not production.
It's beta. Beta, everybody.
Yeah, it's beta, and there's limitations to functionality. We're supporting this for a year or until GA, so hopefully a lot less than a year. But we also have a growing set of capability that's coming out. So each month we are releasing a new version of the beta, and this is actually being driven by customer feedback. So we created our serializer deserializer for Avro. Customers wanted to try it out as soon as possible.
Mhm.
And then, soon, now that it's late February, we're looking at rolling out the strategies you saw. So we'll be providing that. And in March, we're looking at adding to this the caching. It doesn't do caching today because we really wanted to test this out. But caching will really reduce the amount of outreach to the Schema Registry and improve the performance of the overall solution, of course.
Yeah.
And the other thing customers have asked for is reference schema. So it's possible to have schema inside schemas. So to be able to go in and say, inside this field is this schema, and then pull out another schema to make a bigger schema. That's something we're looking at for end of March. And then, April, we're looking at GCSMP, JSON capabilities. And then, we'll fill this out as far as additional functionality. Some customers are asking maybe we do REST. We're currently working through what the rest of this is, but if you have something in particular,
now's the time. Tell us. Get in touch.
Right.
So for the rest, like that would be like using our RDPs or something. Is that like our REST API?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we go from as a REST transport into our RDPs in the broker.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe a quick call to action if we have any users online that are customers of ours, and if you can share the top most used Solace SMF APIs within your organization, that would be fantastic, as we are gathering this data to kind of help fill out the remaining SERDES that we're building. So this will help drive priority. So please share that list with us if you feel comfortable doing so, and we'll take that into consideration.
Excellent.
I noticed Carol is calling out on the no data validation in the beta, and
should I put that up here? Yeah,
sure. That's accurate right now. I mean, clearly, if the schema doesn't match, it's not valid. But what we're talking about here is absolutely making sure that when you go through the schema and it says, this is supposed to be an integer, we're absolutely checking it's an integer and all that sort of thing as it goes through. That's kind of what's to come, but certainly in place for GA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yep. All right. So last but certainly not least, just wanted to cover off the big picture, what happens when this all integrated. And we talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but when you look at Event Portal and what it does, we've already talked about the async API app spec and being able to use an async API generator. That's certainly something we encourage through Event Portal today when you're doing your design, develop, and discover for Event Portal, and leveraging async API for that application development. But in that you are in the deploy stage, taking what you developed there and deploying it onto the event mesh. And this is done by approving your application flow, doing your development. You're ready to get it into runtime. You approve it all, and then it gets pushed out to your schema registries in your various different environments at the same time as you're pushing the configuration for each of your PubSub Plus brokers out into the event mesh, and you've got your application runtime that is, what's being pushed by the application teams into the various different environments for their applications. So all coordinated through Event Portal. Event Portal will be able to do schemas based on versioning and evolving your versions, understanding what events are currently using which version of the schema at a given time, and making sure that they understand which applications are using what, and what the application is actually using from an ability to code, make sure it is able to decode those particular schemas that it's receiving. That all works over top of the MEMS defined inside Event Portal. So, really,
MEM meaning modeled event mesh, everybody, in
yes,
case you didn't know that. Yeah.
Thank you. And then so Event Portal is really going to facilitate the schema provisioning. Applications are associated with the modeled event mesh. Event Portal generates the broker configuration, maps the schema versions from the associated events into those schema registries, and generates a list of schema versions per subject artifact to provision those registries.
Per subject artifact. What's a subject artifact?
So a subject is basically when you take the resolver strategy, and you take those attributes, whether it's the topic, whether it's the Avro namespace, and you package it up and you send it to the schema registry. That's called a subject.
Okay.
So it's kind of, this is what you need to resolve, Mr. Schema Registry, and then it provides the artifact back, which is a set of schemas to compare against, and then compares that schema against the artifact.
Okay. Cool.
Did I get that right, Murat?
Yeah, essentially, subject is a little bit more of a confluent kind of term. This is equivalent to what we referred to earlier as the artifact coordinate. So it's that combination of, in our case, group ID and artifact ID that's unique and used to identify a particular schema.
Right. Okay.
All right. That's what I had to
possible.
take you through today.
Excellent. But I'm hoping, yeah, we're gonna see this live, aren't we? It's not just all slideware today.
That's correct.
So Murat, are you ready? Should I bring your screen on here?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right, let's do that. All right, we can see you're signing in here. That's the right screen, I hope.
Yes, it is. So there is a code lab that goes with our beta. We will be sharing the link and encourage, again, all of you to go through the code lab. It'll walk you step by step in terms of setting up the schema registry, as well as running the sample application that's included, which has our beta version of the JCSMP API, as well as the beta of the SERDES itself. So I'm skipping the part about running Docker Compose to install the schema registry. I'm sure everybody here is more than capable of doing that. So once you've installed it, you will be presented with a login screen like this. These are the default sort of authentication username and password. They are very visible in the beta demo. So it's not something that's hidden, but you can add your own if you really feel so inclined. I have nothing to hide in this case, so I will, of course.
Yeah, live demos.
Need to refresh.
Yeah. Something always has to go wrong for a live demo on Aaron's office hours. So
absolutely. So let's try that one more time.
There we go.
That looks a lot better. So this is the screen you're presented with when you're going to the web interface of the schema registry itself. Now, obviously, a schema registry without any schemas is not very useful.
Boring. Yeah.
And in this case, this particular schema registry refers to schemas as artifacts because it's a little bit more generic and agnostic, so it doesn't really care what you store, but they are essentially schemas. And I'm going to start filling this stuff out. Obviously, I've done this before. So this is going to be the namespace that's used in the schema that our sample application will be kind of working with.
Mm-hmm.
So I pre-populate that. I pre-populate the artifact ID as user, and I let it know that this is an Avro schema. And these are all steps that you will see in the code lab, but I will just go through them here to show you how the creation of schema within this registry is done. The artifact metadata is all optional, so I'll skip it for now. The only other thing you need to do is include the actual schema itself.
Actual schema. Yeah.
So in this case, we have an Avro schema with the name of user, and this is the namespace that we referred to earlier in the first step. So that's what we're going to use in terms of identifying this schema when the sample application is running. So when it's talking to the schema registry, it'll use that, and it'll come back to fetch essentially this schema that we're creating right now. So all of this is optional, so we'll just go ahead, and that's it. So we've added our very first schema to the schema registry, and now we can actually run our sample application. So I will just run the application first, and then we'll just take a look at the code internally to see what it's doing.
Sure.
So as is customary with these command line running code, it's not very pretty, but it's very functional. So we essentially print out the message before we send it. And then we do the same thing on receive, but after it has been deserialized. And that's why you see all the individual data points there. Now, in terms of what's actually happening, so this is the sample application. It's called Hello World JCSMP.
Can you zoom in a few clicks there, Murat?
Yep.
This is my official job on the office hours, is making people zoom in their text.
You sure people can read?
Yeah, just control mouse up. That's probably the easiest way, or control plus, I think, in VS Code.
It is control plus. So let me know
that's
if visibility is good.
That's very big. That's very big now.
Maybe we'll go a bit back. Yeah, so this is the Hello World JCSMP Avro SERDES sample application. This is, again, a sample application that's included with the beta package. And it really does act as a very basic publisher and consumer. And it serializes on publish and deserializes on consume. So we'll just look at some of the options here. So the configuration currently for the SERDES is very basic. And that's why in that limitation slide that Rob flashed up, we mentioned that configuration is very minimal, and it's essentially just the link to the registry itself and the username and password that are going to be used to interact with it. With the upcoming betas that are going to be rolling out, including the one towards the end of this month, with the introduction of the resolver strategies, obviously this configuration list is going to grow. So you'll have more items to configure. And in the future, once we have caching within the SERDES, that's another configuration item that you're going to have in terms of being able to set the timeout for the cache and other parameters. But as it stands with the very first beta, it's very basic connection to the schema registry, and that's it.
Use your password. Yep. Keep it simple. Perfect.
Simple.
Yeah.
So that's that. This is actually created from a sample JCSMP application. So anybody who's used this previously will be very familiar with. what's happening here. So the other important piece is obviously the creation and the configuration of the different serializers. In this case, we have a generic record serializer. So this is only for Avro. And as Rob noted, you will need a single instance of a serializer per data format. So if you have an application that deals with Avro, JSON, protobuf, anything else, once we have SERDES for those, you will need an instance of each to handle the very specific payload type, because it does matter to them, unlike the Solace broker, which doesn't care and just passes them around. So in this case, we have the serializer and deserializer. We configure them, and the configuration is nothing fancy. As mentioned above, it's just the 3 fields. So the URL, username, and password. And in this section here, we have the consumer portion. So this is the call that you need to make to deserialize. I know you were asking about this, Aaron, and how automatic is it?
Right.
It's relatively automatic, but you do need to make this particular call. Pass in the deserializer, the message, and a generic record, which is what will be populated by the deserializer when it deserializes the message. And
interesting.
Yeah,
so we've modified the kind of that get message consumer session.get message consumer. You now pass in a serializer or deserializer. That's all right. That's interesting. That's okay. Cool.
Yeah. And this printf line, as you can see, is what we got when we received it. So we got the record, and this was the generic record, which is the Avro object that was deserialized with all the information there. So that's on the consumption side. On the producer side, we create and populate the generic record here. So we create a new generic record. We put all the data points that we have, and the serialize function here will take the serializer, the message, end user, and essentially
do its bit.
Yeah, do its bit where it maps all this data to the schema. Within this serialize function, that's where all the interaction with the schema registry happens. So that's the call to schema registry with the namespace in this case, but in the future, based on the artifact coordinate, to say, find me a schema that matches this. And that's the schema that would have matched here. So this is what would have been returned along with the unique identifier to identify the schema within the schema registry. And that's what we add to the Solace user properties in order for the consumer part of this to be able to retrieve it once the message comes back.
Go back to your console there for a second. So
Yep.
I missed the user properties. Like what? So what are they? Key, Solace schema, something encoding, Avro encoding, binary, Solace schema ID 1. Okay. So
yeah, so it is 1 because we only have a single schema registry.
1 for right now.
Well, single schema right now.
In the schema. Yeah.
Yeah. So because we didn't specify it, the schema registry will auto increment as schemas are added. And this is a unique identifier for that particular schema for that particular version. So that's what we use to call on the consumption side to get the exact schema that was used for the producer.
Cool. I was going to make a bit a joke. Like if you scroll up on your source code there, people might have noticed the term XML everywhere, even though we're talking about Avros, and you might be confused why there's XMLs, producers and consumers. Well, that's just our old legacy JCSMP that has been around since the content routing days when we did XML content routing. And don't worry about the name XML, everybody. It can send all sorts of data, just a name for the object.
Absolutely.
So don't get confused by that, because I do have customers asking how to send not XML. I'm like, you can send anything you want with these XML producers. Don't worry. It's just the name of the object.
No, that's exactly it. And that's it. It's a very simple sample
Yep.
application just to show you how to get started with the SERDES. So
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's all we have right now.
All right. Thanks for the demo.
I have
Do you
posted in the links the
Yep,
code lab
noticed
and the
that.
access to the beta, so people can.
So
Or
the
go
code
ahead and do
labs are generally self-guided tutorials. We have a whole bunch over on at Solace Dev. So codelabs.solace.dev, and I'm sure you can search by like recent or something, or just type in schema, and I'm sure you'll be able to find it. You don't have to do the whole thing, but yeah, codelabs.solace.dev. And what's the other link you posted up here? Products. Okay. Can they find this through the menu somehow? Like, or do they have to know this URL? Like, will there be a link that says products under products?
Well, if you go into products at solace.com.
Oh, this is the file drop. Right.
Right. This is the file drop. So you just go into the most of our customers, especially self-managed ones, will be familiar with this, and you go in and you'd be dumped into prods immediately. And you just select Schema Registry Beta.
Yeah.
There you go.
And if you are not currently a Solace customer, or for whatever reason you don't have access, please reach out to myself or Rob or even Aaron, and we can provide that package to you directly.
Yep. Join us. Come here, and that's probably one of the easiest places to find the three of us. We answer questions there. We hang out, and if you don't have a direct line into Solace through some paid customer engagement, come find us in the Solace community and chat us up there. So let me just put that up there. I guess that already says Solace community at the bottom, but I guess I want to use that banner. Cool. Do you have any closing slides, or are we at the end of your stuff?
We're at the end of the stuff.
Okay. Yep. Awesome. I just noticed Sven, one of our colleagues there, kind of posted up office hours top tip: make sure your laptop is plugged in. Yes, Sven was my guest last month when we did API management, unified API management, combining traditional RESTful APIs with event APIs all in one API management portal. And his laptop was plugged in but not charging, or it was just not quite plugged in right. And right at the end of the live stream, things started to not go so well for him. So I've actually added that as a tip on my checklist there, Sven. So your pain is going to help other people in the future. So and Rob, your headphones sound like they made it through. So excellent. I'm glad about that. So anyway, well, gentlemen, thank you very much. You timed that quite well. I think we had a few more questions than maybe I'm expecting, and I probably talked more than I should. We're a little bit over. Thank you to everybody out there for your questions. It was quite interactive. I hope you enjoyed the session. Rob, Murat, any last words before we wrap it up here?
Just a call to action. We really would like your feedback on this Schema Registry, and so please go out and give it a shot. Let us know. As Aaron says, community is the best place to find us, and certainly reach out on community with your questions, your feedback. We'd very much appreciate that.
Cool.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, please share your top APIs.
Yes, top APIs, everybody.
Every customer I meet with, I will hound them for this. Top APIs, much appreciated.
When I was first at Solace, I was doing professional service at Barclays, and I wrote a script to crawl all the event logs of every Solace appliance they had, which were in the low hundreds at that point, I think, and just basically looking all of the APIs, because on the connect, when you connect into the broker, there's an event log issued, and it says what the API version is and which flavor, and I put it all into a big Excel spreadsheet. And anyway, check out your event logs, people. If you don't actually know what your applications are using, that's a good place to find that information. So and one last thing, Solace community, I mean, we're talking about it right now. Solace community is getting a big overhaul. We're upgrading the underlying forum software and SaaS that we've been using for the last several years. And it is going to be temporarily in a read-only mode over the weekend. So if you're seeing this replay and wanting to talk to us on Friday or Saturday, it might not work, or Monday. I forget the cutover day, but it's going to be soon. But if you're in the future, if it's March 2025 or later, don't worry about this particular message. So anyway, thanks a lot for joining me, guys. Thank you for starting your day with us. It was great. I'm going to go try this out, actually. I'm kind of looking forward to it. So thank you to all for watching. I'll see you next month. I'm not sure what my subject is going to be, but end of March. It won't be from Singapore, I'll tell you that. But we'll see you soon. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one. Thanks, guys. See you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.